Hello, it's our TED Talk class. Today we will speak about TED Talk with title A Tale of Two Political Systems. Something about politicians and China. Vasant, can you tell us what is this talk about?
In this talk, this speaker told about Chinese political system, which was governed by a single political party since from their beginning, and he also listed out the good thing and bad thing. He compared the two political systems, like from the one political party and the other democratic countries in the world, and I think he justified his point by giving us some statistics, like China is growing up in most of the fields, and but other democratic countries are still struggling with their own problems, and the democracy doesn't improve. And I think he said that. That's his point.
I see. Jart, would you like to add something?
And then the speaker stand up for the idea that the political system in China is as good for them as this democracy for us. For them, it works, and they like it, and we should abide that. He is trying to make us understand why they like that, and because the results are pretty good.
I like the part when he said it's not for export, it's for us.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Diana, have you chance to watch this TED Talk?
Yes, I watched it, but unfortunately it was just like once and right before the class, so I didn't have time to, to absorb it, kind of, to process it. Yeah, but I also liked the point when he said that this is like a unique system which worked for them. So I think that the thing that they managed to do is to learn from mistakes, their own and mistakes of others as well. So they kind of, on the watch, and they see what does not work for others and what did not work for them. And they make, they learn their lesson. So, but, like that diagram that he showed, the very spiky diagram. So the mistake and good decision, and then decisions. So now they are in the high point. So I don't want to rain on their parade, but as the logic goes, some fall is following, according to their, according to that diagram and the, like historically. But okay, that's actually the really good, nice thing that we are watching right now. Really, China is in great position right now, and they're developing. So the economically, they are the second, he said, right? The second economy in the world. So that's pretty impressive, and taking into account that their cultural revolution was just years ago, in the 60s, 70s. So that's very impressive, yes. So, and it sets an example. It is possible to make it efficient, but I think that, of course, it should be different for everyone. So that's what I've learned from this talk.
I think one thing about China, they're able to prosper inside the country because they don't care about anybody outside the country. So they can focus all the resources on internal improvement. If the US did that, if we didn't have stinking armies in Afghanistan and armies in here and here and here and fighting all these, if we put all our resources inside our country, we'd be better off too.
Sure.
But we
Yes.
spread our resources out to other places, and we suffer at home because we don't have any money because we're spending it in other places. China is putting all their stuff inside the country. They don't care if they piss off Vietnam. They don't care if the Philippines feels bullied by them, you know. So they've got some advantages by virtue that they don't care about the rest of the world right now. And democracies try to help other countries. And I think that's the difference. China's a lousy neighbor. I don't think anybody says that China's a good neighbor and a good friend other than maybe North Korea. And that's really just for money reasons. So yeah, China's doing well, but everyone hates them.
But I think they're solving a hard task, you know. So they were really poor. They were really in bad position. So they have to act, I don't know, seriously. They have to care a lot about that to solve this.
Well, and I think their one-party system is a two-edged sword. The advantage they've got over democracies is if their government wants to do something, boom, they do it today. They don't have to wait for the stupid Congress to debate for a year and delay and fight each other and nothing gets done. They can take action immediately and see the effect and say, oops, and then tomorrow they take a different action. We don't have that responsiveness. The other edge of the sword is if they decide to get corrupt and totalitarian, they can quickly make the country go bad just as fast. So,
right. Gerard?
I think the speaker missed some important points. One of them is why is China thriving so much? Because he is the factory of the developed countries like the US and Europe. So the citizens are exploited to make goods for us that are cheaper. When they are in their, the population in China is thriving, they'll have higher wages, higher salaries. So there will reach a point where making goods in China won't be as profitable for us. I think the Chinese economy will collapse because they depend a lot on what they export to foreign countries. It's not that only they live with, they have inside them, inside the country. They depend a lot of foreign countries.
So your point is if the export will be killed by someone, right? We don't buy anymore from China. They will collapse. I think it's true, but do we still can? I think we cannot stop it now. We totally related to this export. We have everything produced in China. So if they stop sell to us, we will collapse too, I think.
That's what Donald Trump wants to do. Donald Trump wants keep the factories in the US. But the American companies like to make their products in China because it's cheaper. I think it's not the fault of China. It's the fault of American companies.
Yeah.
Not only Americans, us Russians companies, the same thing. We just cannot produce many things. We just don't have technology for that. We lost that, and we depend on China now. So we cannot say we don't buy anymore. We will produce it because we don't have this opportunity. And I don't think that he, in his talk, he wanted to show this part of the story. I think I like it the way how he described it. How he was very convincing, in my opinion. Very convincing. He convinced me that there are many ways. There are many ways of judging something. So you cannot say that this government is illegal just because someone else in the world don't like it. So if you have a good numbers, if your citizens are happy, it seems a legal thing for me. Something like this. I like this point, for instance. Another point, what I like it, he said, this line that I mentioned before. He said it's not for export, but it's I forgot exact word, but something like it's an example that proves that other countries may have their way as well. So if we have our way, then other countries may have their way, their ways, their way as well. Not only the democracy. What do you think about this? Is it possible? So he convinced me in this regard, I think. Diana?
The democracy itself, it's not like, you know, the same. It is different in different countries, you know, just you cannot copy the American democracy or the French democracy in your country. So why don't adapt the democracy according to your realities? So why you need to create a one-party system of China or like, I don't know, anything. So probably I still believe that democracy is like, okay, yeah, it is not foolproof system. Yeah, but you know, like it's, for me, it's still like the top of the pyramid, you know, and I think that it can be better, can be, you know, developed, organized better. So there are a lot of faults in it, but still, you know, we should work on making it better.
Gerard?
In China, they may be, most people are content with their government, but we know that they don't have freedom of choice because, you know, they are controlled. The internet is controlled, so they cannot know other ideas on what is really happening in the world. So they are a little bit manipulated, not as much as in North Korea, but in some way they are. And they have in an idealistic way of seeing his government, the government.
Yeah, that's also a cultural thing, you know. Just they were made to love their government for so long, so that they don't know the other way.
But
that's why they're all content with the system.
But I think that we all have the same problem. We all have the limited worldview. We live in our countries, and I don't think that and our internet is censored in the same way. You know, in any country, it has some resources that not shown. So we cannot say that it's different here.
Which resources are not shown in your country, Ivan? That's interesting, just for me.
Yes, we have some list of extremists resources. That filtered.
Really? Wow.
Yes, the same in America, the same in UK. I work in this regard. I know this experience. It's every government has this list. So.
Oh, okay. Well, if it is an extremist resources, so yeah, but I can freely, I can freely go.
It's very tricky, Diana. You know, it's it can be extremist, you know, just because it's not your point of view, and it's happened all the time.
Yeah, but speaking of China, they cannot use like the simplest Google documents, you know, like things that we all use and which are very, very, I would say, you know, just innocent, very innocent. So that's the way of the limits, you know, just different types of limits. You know, you're comparing extremist kind of things, you know, like political, and the thing that just they cannot use nothing, just Skype. Can they use Skype? Probably Skype only. The only thing that they can use. I mean, all other things, you know, like the Google Hangouts. I think everything Google probably is prohibited over there.
Yeah,
so,
YouTube. They can't. No YouTube. Yeah.
No YouTube, no, yes.
Okay, let me be devil advocates here, but they can't use Google resources at all. That's true. But it's not a political solution. It's an economical solution. When Google was in China, it was 10 years ago, they tried to make a trade. They failed. So Google said, we will not work with China. China said, we will not work with Google. And now China has their own Google. They have their own Google documents, an alternative, I think. So it's not a problem for people, you know. They can use the same resources. They just name it in different way. So I don't think it's a huge problem. You know.
Okay, yeah, it's not a huge problem, but I could not work with some Chinese students because of that not huge problem. You know, yeah, they can communicate with their own people, but it is problematic to communicate with the rest of the world. That's what I'm talking about.
They have Skypes. You can install WeChat. You know, it's a problem of corporation, not about people. If you have a Chinese student, I can show you 10 ways to make a call. You know, it's not a problem.
Yeah, yes, but you know, like the resources, what I'm using. Yes, you can speak with the person, but you cannot. Okay, that's.
They Baidu, they WeChat, they corporation. They just what's the word for that? Protectionism, right? They just defend on technology company. They just protect they ultimately. They just don't allow to Google come in. So that's all. Yeah, and I don't think it's too bad. You know, I would like to have local Google. I would like to have local YouTube. I don't care if it makes many jobs for us. I don't care. I would like that. It's what Trump tried to do now. Why we call it different? So Trump said we will produce all these things. They already do that. What is the difference? Okay, let's go to somewhere somewhere else. So what teacher really told about the system, I can say I think that it's a word adaptability about that, right? Adaptability. They can make solution fast. They can revert it next day, and they can go by way, how we call it, trial and error. Trial and error. And I think it's a good idea. What do you think? Would you like that your government would use this way? Was able to use this way?
See, the problem with America is we've got 4-year presidents. One president does A, the next president says, I don't like A, we're going to get rid of that and do B. And the next president comes and says, I don't like B, we're going to get rid of that and go back to A. We flip-flop every 4 years and undo whatever the previous guy did. So we never have progress. One thing I like about China is they have 5-year plans. And they stick to the plan. And it doesn't matter who's in control, the plan goes on usually. In America, we just flip-flop. We keep tearing down what someone else tries to build, like Obamacare. We still got expensive medical. It hadn't improved in 60 years. Our country doesn't know what to do. The government doesn't know how to fix the problem. It's frustrating, yeah.
But we had this 5 years plan in Soviet Union, and it was a terrible thing. Just because this plan wasn't smart enough or something like this, but that was publicly criticized things. So we always criticize these plans because on the start this plan looks good, but after a few years it's accumulate errors. And it seems a very stupid things to continue, but we continue it anyway. Anyway, it's what I've got my impressions, my impression from that. So it was the first word, adaptability. What about the second one? Meritocracy.
Meritocracy.
Meritocracy. Can you explain it, Hans? Can you explain it? What is it?
I think it's I don't know. It's only by the people who have the ability to do such thing. I think people have the power to rule the country, and like unlike Donald Trump, who doesn't have any previous experience in politics, so and we don't know he would perform as a president in a good way. So they were meritocracy means if you have only the ability to rule the country, then you are good to go.
Anything to add?
Well, actually, meritocracy means that this is the government, which government of people who is selected by their merit. Not because they were born and their parents had money or were in politics, but they deserve it, and they start from the bottom. That's what I liked about that. So the current president, or not the president, the leader, of the country, started from the bottom. He was like the village manager, something like that. I don't know exact name. So, and he, step by step, he went up this ladder, and he become, after 30 years, it took him not like a day or a year or 5 years even. It took him 30 years to get to the point and be able to be leader of the country. And that, I think, is what makes them realize what the real problems of the people are. The way why it never worked in the Soviet Union with those 5-year plans, I think, was because the party leaders were so isolated. They didn't realize what was going on the bottom of this chain, food chain. They were just like, somewhere in the skies. So they just, okay, let's make this plan, let them produce this amount of something, And people thought, what? Do you understand what you are talking about? They were not, they, of course, they had advisors and so on and so forth, but actually, ultimately, they had one leader who had some crazy idea, and they were too afraid, all the rest were too afraid to say no to him. That was the problem. So over there, it's a different situation. They know, because they were in this for all their lives, they understand how the system works, and they are able to make wise decisions. That's, I think, what happens now there.
Okay, and I partially agree with that, but let me provide a counterexample. We have some leaders from the bottom as well. For instance, Khrushchev or Yeltsin, they built it. They built it pig farms in my area, and then step by step went to the president position. So it's not always work, it seems for me.
Maybe this pyramid thing was different, like in this talk, he explained something about this pyramid system. So which I don't remember exactly. So.
Sounds question?
Yes, I want to know about the name or a term for the ruling. For an example, if a king rules and his son comes to the power next, so what is the term for such government?
Monarchy, I think.
Yeah, it's a monarchy.
Usually monarchy, you'll hear the term royal family a lot, the family, ruling family.
Yeah, but we don't have the monarchy now. It's just like, I mean, no, okay, not in Europe.
Thailand, yeah. Still does that.
Yeah.
North Korea.
North Korea, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, in these democratic states, I mean, yeah.
Vasant, please.
Actually, many years ago, one man asked to an author about the political system in India. So which one do you prefer, a monarchy or a democracy? Then he asked, what's the difference between them? Because in India, even a political party has such a monarchy system. So if you are a leader of a political party, then your son comes to the power later. So it doesn't make any difference. Only the name differs.
Yeah.
So you combine both systems together, right? It's still democracy, but you can choose a monarchy branch, right?
No, just no matter how you call it, it's all the same broken system.
Now, Vasant, I have a question. You've got like 9 classes of people, right? Social levels. Are the government people always from the upper class, or do you have different classes of people in the government?
No, they are always the upper class people.
Usually upper class,
Whoever
okay.
is in politics. Yeah.
So if you're born in the lower classes, you can never go into politics?
You can only get a lower level positions in the that political
Okay.
party, because it's really
Villages or
hard
something like that?
yeah,
Okay.
to reach the higher level. It's really hard.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I see. So speaking of, again, I forgot the stress, meritocracy. Meritocracy.
Meritocracy.
Okay. Speaking about meritocracy, we discussed this once with Jean on Loop, and I said that I'm a big fan of meritocracy. I'm against the democracy. I think that vote must be a right that you have to deserve, and it's a meritocracy, in my opinion. So it should not be that you have a vote just because you're born here. You should produce some goods for society. What do you think about this idea in general? Is it bad or good in your opinion? So I'm a big fan of it. What do you think?
I'm sorry. You said that you vote. You should vote only if you produce something.
I think that democracy is a broken system. I think that
So
it
no
must be.
voting. Mm-hmm.
I think that yes, you have to deserve the right of voting. What I think.
Mm-hmm.
There must be some.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
I understand.
There must be some rules. How can you deserve it? It can be public serve or military serving or something else, but it must be, strict rules. So I think it's a waste of resources to. I don't know.
Waste of paper, to take all the grannies, yes, in the voting booths.
The system I would like to try is every citizen has to serve 2 years in the military, and then every citizen has to serve 2 years in the government, and that way everyone is equally understanding of how a country is run and what's necessary. When they serve their 2 years in the government, if they do well, then they get promoted. And if they do well, they get promoted. And you don't have this election and this political party infighting. You get promoted if you do an excellent job. But see, that's kind of ideal. I don't know how we would enforce that or make it work.
But isn't it that's the thing that speaker described it?
A little bit, yeah. It's kind of like his system. I don't know if his system's as ideal as he describes it, but it has, to me, it has merit.
Of course, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
It's a real world. It's still, but it may be close. Vasant's question? Comment?
Plus, okay, just sorry, Vasant. Yes, your comment, please. Mm-hmm.
No, what I think is democracy was supposed to be a powerful system when it was introduced to the society, but I think the people and the political parties understanding matters here. I think they misunderstood the concept of democracy, and they are doing it totally wrong, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerard, go ahead.
Another problem of democracy is sometimes politicians are not good enough to do their job. Another
Sometimes
thing, they are very often.
That's so nice.
Another thing, people are not clever enough to vote the most appropriate thing, and we can see that many times. If people had to do an exam to prove that their knowledge about what's happening in the world, basic knowledge, most of them would show that their cultural level is very low. So how can they take good decisions? I'm talking about, for instance, about in the UK about the Brexit. And now it's proving that Brexit maybe it wasn't that good, because I think they were deceived that if the UK left the European Union, they would, the immigrant problem would be solved. That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lasad's question?
Yes. Do you think it's possible to call back if a politician didn't complete his assurances or something?
Promises, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
promises.
We have examples of that, right? Teacherly. Clinton, for instance.
Every politician I've ever known.
But I'm not talking about the duration, because when the duration ends, then they're automatically are gone. But I'm talking about the instant callback. If someone is involved in a scandal, then just call back right now, like that.
There is the impeachment, yes, in the democracy. So there is an impeachment, right?
But if you think more about that, it's hard to implement this thing, because
Yeah.
we can make scandal from the thin air, and it can paralyze the work of the whole system. Sometimes people in power have to make unpopular solution. Sometimes they have to, and it's easy to make them more unpopular and to make some kind of impeachment. I don't know. Is impeachment is a term only for presidents or for any clerk?
Only for the president.
I see.
Other people, we can't get, if they're elected, we can't get rid of them easily. It's got to be really, really, really bad. But we don't have a process to just kick somebody out normally.
So is there any process of delisting the judge, for instance, or something like this?
It possibly, but it would have to be really, really, really bad.
I see.
I've rarely seen anybody get fired for incompetency in the government. Very rare. Just doesn't happen.
And I understand why. Because we need some ruler for that. Is it incompetent enough or not? And it's another problem that's hard to solve.
We have a few rare positions, like the FBI director, Comey, that the president can fire any time. We have a few positions like that, but it's rarely done. And there's not many of them. So I was impressed that Trump was not afraid to fire Comey, because to me, I don't think Comey did his job correctly. I would have fired him in a heartbeat.
Did I get this right, that the president of US cannot fire the governor of state?
No, the governors are elected. Yeah.
I see. Well, it's a good thing, I think. It's for me. So, and it's a good segue to the next word from this talk, legitimacy, right? Legitimacy. So, what is that? Can we describe it?
No, nobody knows what it is.
I know how to translate it in my native language, but I don't think that I can explain what is that.
The simple meaning is, if something's legitimate, it's legal. That's the simple definition. It's allowed to be. Now,
well, legitimacy is like conformity to the law. So that means that the legal system in the country works. That's, like.
Yeah. When we talk about a government being legitimate, legitimacy is what gives you the right to rule over other people. What gives you the right? Well, I can rule the country because my dad ruled the country, and my son can rule the country because I ruled the country. Is that a legitimate reason to rule over people because they're in your family? That is not a legitimate reason to give you the right to rule over 100 million people. You have to have some moral authority that the people give you that gives you the right to control their lives. That's what legitimacy is talking about. A rebellion of the majority of the people, like we did in 1776, that even though we rebelled against the British, our whole country kind of did it. So that gave our new government legitimacy, because all of the people were in favor of our new government being established. So it had legitimacy because it was the will of the people that this government start ruling them. So it's that kind of a thing. It's a, you know, if someone kills someone and has a military coup of a minority and they rule the country, do they have the confidence and will of the people and the willingness of the people to be ruled by them? Probably not. So it's does the population feel or agree that you should rule them and control them? That's legitimacy.
Right, right. And sometimes we have example when the population agree, but the neighbors are not agree, right? And it's another problem. And we start to speak about, I don't know how to call it, about double standards and so on. That it looks legit, but real. But I don't know. I can explain that.
I hate to say it, but in the Cold War, the USSR was famous for puppet governments in Eastern European countries. Russia put the leaders in power. So we call that a puppet government, because the USSR was pulling the strings, controlling those countries' governments.
Right.
So those were not legitimate governments, if you will.
Why not? Well, it's an interesting question. Why not? Gerard, please.
So I think illegitimacy is something subjective. So it depends on the point of view of the viewer. What's legitimate for someone from a Muslim country? Their rules is what is legitimate for them, and for many countries the same. They have different ways of seeing the things, and what is legitimate is it's from their point of view.
Well, that's the point of view of their law. You know, what is legitimate in their country. The law should rule it. So it's not just like your point of view, because your Spanish laws are nothing to the Muslim country, you know. So according to their law, you are not legitimate, you know, like your rules are not legitimate in their country. So I don't know, that's like the inner thing of each country. So who can decide on the legitimacy of you know, your government? Only you and your citizens, you know, of the country, not your neighbor, nobody from the outside. No. Go.
I agree with this point that only citizens of the country can decide is it legit or not. I agree with this point of view, but also we cannot refuse the fact that it's always happened from outside. You know, especially said about the puppet governments. You know, was they legal on the paper? I think yes. I did not read that, but I think that all the formality were done. I think.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think it was done.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
It was. Okay. It was not like from the you know, from the legal standards of the country. It was like, you know, it's a bit.
The army came in, and this guy was put in power.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds comment.
Yes. What will happen if you don't want to vote for any party that participate in that election? Because in India they introduced a new button to the voting machine, as it's called Nota. That means I don't want to elect anybody, so I just stay out of the like that. So,
okay.
What happens? That's what I want. Yeah, I like that.
What happens if you know, like you don't choose any of these of the candidates, right? So
that's the problem. Yeah.
So okay, if you don't choose, and okay, let's say that there are the majority of people who do not choose any of them, does it change anything? Because we had that at one point here. We had this none, whatever, you know, no one. Okay, but it didn't work. And actually people were fooled by that, because when they voted none, at the end, they counted all the votes. So they took the bigger votes from the rest, you know, like, I cannot explain it properly, but actually those people who voted, their voice was not counted at all. So you voted none. That's why you are out of the voting, so to say, out of the election.
Yeah. 10 years ago, 10 years ago we had this in Russia too. Now it's refused. Now it's we finished that. We don't have this option anymore because it was a stupid option, you know. And our law was like that. If we have a majority of non-vote, it means that election will come again in a few months. So nothing chosen, and let's reconsider that later, something like that. And it was a stupid waste of resources.
Yes, actually, it's a shame for a country who supports democracy, because you're introducing a new button and your citizen doesn't want to vote anybody. That means you're not capable of ruling your country.
Yeah.
So it's a shame for everybody. Yeah.
And we're all ashamed now. Yeah.
This election was the worst one we've ever had. Nobody wanted Clinton and nobody wanted Trump.
Right.
And some people just chose not to vote.
Yeah.
But see, like you said, they didn't get to influence the election. They just didn't vote, so their voice was lost.
Right.
Okay, just imagine for a second that you will have this law like in Russia in past. So if everyone, if majority vote like not for Clinton, not for Trump, and it will be re-election, do you think you will have new candidates for that? Or the same one?
There are always candidates. They just may not be popular. We had 19 Republican candidates, and Trump beat all 18 up, the other 18. So there were other people running, but they lost. They just weren't well known enough. But you're right. I would like to see a list of candidates, and we pre-vote and say, no, give us a better candidate before the election. So when you get to the election, you've got someone that's kind of been pre-vetted, but we don't have that option.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, this democratic procedures are always hard, you know. Everyone has an opinion how to improve it.
Yeah.
It's a problem. So that's why I choose meritocracy, you know. Less people vote, but it will be some people who proved that they should vote. Something like this. And I don't mind about money. If it just will be a ticket, you know, you will buy a ticket to vote. At least you will show some interest to that. At least you can invest some your money in that. So I would I would like that as well.
Yeah. Okay.
What about meta narrative? Who can get the meaning from the talk? It was a word from the talk when they speak about the difference of the democracy and meritocracy, and speaker said something about meta narrative, and I got it like this term like post-truth, something like this. When the candidates speak about general solutions, not show the deeds, the ideals, but just speak about general, something like this.
Meta has the meaning of overview or large scope. I got the idea that when he said meta narrative, he meant a philosophy that if we do this, and this, we will reach the top of the mountain and everything will be great. But there's different meta narratives that have different ways to get to that pinnacle of success. So it's like to me an all-encompassing philosophy of how to achieve success. Democracy is one meta-narrative. Communism is another meta-narrative. They each have a grand scheme or strategy to achieve success. So there are many meta-narratives, and you have to decide which one is true or the most valid.
I see.
So it's kind of like an ideology, I think.
I see.
Well, actually, from the psychology, I remember the term metacognition. So metacognition means that you are aware of your own thought process. So meta-narrative, if you just compare that. So the meta-narrative means that you can interpret the events and circumstances, you know, and the experiences which lead. So you are interpreting the events, and you understand why these events lead to the certain circumstances. This is meta-narrative. So. Do you understand what I'm talking about? It's like, yeah, like awareness of what events lead to what circumstances, something like that.
Yeah. Ivan, you know metadata, right?
Right.
How would you define metadata in terms of meta?
In IT, metadata means that it's data that describe another data. It's a scheme.
Yeah.
Right. It's a scheme. It's like an overall structure or organization of data.
So I have all the data in the tables. What describes table? Who describes table? Metadata describes table. So columns, rows. Columns mean Z, rows mean Zs, and we have data in these columns.
So the scheme. Awareness. Yeah. Yes, it's like awareness of the scheme, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay, short question from our question list. Let's start from our questions because time is almost over. So, what kind of political system does your country have? Single party, double, multiple, and do you like that? Vasant, teach us about India. I don't know nothing.
We have multiple parties. You all know about the Indian caste system. We have many castes, so every caste has its own political party. And when it comes to the election, they combine themselves like, okay, we can join our hands for this election, and we can share our votes. So the counting increases when they join hands. So it happens like that.
Okay.
So you have only 9 parties?
More.
No, countless.
Probably
countless. You cannot count them. Okay.
At least 9, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I said only, because only is just like, just 9. That's good.
Okay, I think we all know about America, about conservative and liberal party, right? And
yeah, we're really 2 parties. They're smaller parties, but they're not important.
And I think that's the same in Spain, right? Sure.
No, we have several political parties, 5 or 6 that are important. For instance, now the government, the right-wing party is the one that rules Spain, but it doesn't have the majority, the absolute majority, because the Socialist Party voted in white. They said. So the government could, the right wing party could make a government, but they can, because they don't have the majority, the other parties can go together and impeach the government whenever they want to. They only have to agree or ask for new elections.
What about Ukraine, Diana?
Oh, many parties. Many. I don't know how many, really. I don't know. So a lot. So like 10 plus, So I don't even remember their names now. So there are some like bigger parties, and some smaller parties. So I'm not sure how. Like probably 4 or 5 are most important parties, but there are many more parties.
Okay.
Well, it was like that in Russia many years ago, maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. I can't remember exactly. It was a lot of party, and it was a total mess in our Senate.
Yeah.
Because they cannot make any decision. It was only debates, zero decisions, and now it became to one party. It's not one, but one bigger one that can decide. So it's a majority party, and all others just have smaller percentage, and they doesn't count.
So there is no opposition then? No opposition?
There is opposition. There is a lot of opposition, but in our Senate, they didn't represent it well. Our population don't like that, don't like them, and we still afraid of that messed Senate when we have a lot of parties and zero solutions.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't think that many people are happy with that system, but with system of one party, I think that many people don't like that. But we don't have the one big opposition that can, shift it. We don't have it. We have many small oppositions that hate each other more than general party.
That's right. So strong opposition is needed in order to change the system. If there is no strong opposition, it's impossible to do anything, right?
I just recall this movie about Brian's life. This front of EOD people, and it's the same here. So our opposition hate each other more than the big one.
Yeah.
So okay, we have time for another one. How does your government know about people's opinion on new bill schemes? Do they conduct surveys? Sounds? Teach us.
No. In India, they never conduct such a thing. They usually, do you know about the recent tax system in India? I think Teacher Lee know about that. He also
system.
The one tax system, reformed one tax system entire India. So we are all expected that it was going to be introduced at a broad daylight, but it didn't happen. They did it at midnight, like goons or any illegal activities like that. So they did that. So that was really funny, because who you are afraid of, like that. So if you're doing good thing, why don't you do that in a broad daylight?
Yeah, that's interesting. Cool.
Okay. What about US? Do you participate in such service, Teacher Lee?
We pay our government pays companies to do polls. I don't know if I trust those or not, because when someone pays you to do a poll, they may feel obligated to influence the results to favor the people that are paying them to do the poll. And our polls in this last election proved to be bullshit anyway, so I don't trust our poll system.
So don't you have like independent companies?
Sometimes the news, sometimes companies do surveys and the news reports on those surveys.
How about universities? There is like sociology kind of stuff, probably statistics, anything. Maybe like universities can, conduct such.
The news talks about surveys, but to me, when I hear about surveys and polls, to me, they have no legitimacy.
Right.
I don't trust them to be honest or objective.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but we have them, but
okay.
We don't have an authoritative. This survey was done by this company. We can believe that. We don't have anything like that.
Yeah, it's impossible in nowadays,
Yeah, that's right.
Gerard?
In Spain, we do many surveys, but I think we can't trust them, because I think people lie. So people maybe are like a little ashamed to vote for some party, and they say, no, I'm not going to vote for this party, and they say the opposite. So they are not reliable.
Yeah. That's right. People are to blame. They're not reliable. Bad citizens. So we have a good country, but bad citizens, just.
Well, Yeah, and that's what they think
Yeah,
happened
that's
with our
beautiful.
polls. They think people said, "Oh, I wouldn't vote for Trump. He's a bigot," but then they voted for him secretly.
Right.
Yeah.
Citizens, I'm telling you.
So what about polls and surveys in Ukraine, Diana?
That's very interesting. You know, they usually make polls right after the election. What's the point in them? I don't understand that at all. You know, just did you vote for that candidate? So what? Okay, what kind of poll is that? You know, what does it prove or doesn't prove? I don't know. So that's interesting. So, well, polls, surveys in the you know, in the papers, on the internet resources, but nothing, you know, like serious or scientific, nothing legitimate as we know the word now.
Well, what about Russia? We have some polls, and as you mentioned before, I don't trust them too much, and I don't know how they made, and they made by some commercial companies. So, and I don't think that government listen to these reports. I don't think so. I think these reports only for showing on TV for the citizens, so just to make a show. It's my opinion. I think so. But what is good feedback? We have one channel for feedback, and I think it's a good channel. We have some site, special government provided site where you can register, and it's not an anonymous site. You have to show your passport and so on. You have to prove that you who you are, and after that you can provide any idea to the government, and if this idea have some number of votes, people can vote for these ideas. Government promises that they will not apply that, but they don't promise. They don't promise to implement that. That they promise that they will develop a document and put this document into the Senate to consider that.
Okay.
Discuss it, and we have a few
something from the giver, special committee to put all your complaints and things there.
And we have only few good cases when we have only very few cases when it was done. Usually people don't want to vote for these projects and so on. And one of these projects that comes from people and was approved by Senate, it was a limit of price for the cars bought for government clerks. So people set the limit of the price for cars that government can buy. it was populism, I think, but it's worked in this way. So the only example. And our time is over. I enjoyed this discussion. I learned many things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I enjoyed the talk, and see you tomorrow. And I hope at that time we will have the good number of participants.
Yes.
The Godfather tomorrow, right?
Godfather,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And I still remember the song.
Yeah.
Speak softly so no one else can hear.
Okay.
It's a good one.